Okay, in previous class we discussed a lot of topics like as variables. Then we have discussed about the data types as well as loops, then conditional statements as well, right? So just like as a recap, and we have different data types, primitive data types as well as collection data types and special data types. So primitive data types, integer, double, decimal, then ID, okay, string, as well as date, time. Lot of things we have already seen that. And then loops, we have seen that do while, and for loop. Okay, and conditional statements if else, other things, if else if. Okay, today we are going to discuss the topics like as class and object and third one is constructors and methods. Let's see how many we can cover. Okay, and these are the things we are going to cover today. Okay, uh, whoever knows the Java, they know about class. What is a class? Okay, and what's an object and what is a constructor and what's an methods and other things. Okay, and very simple example, what is a class? No, a class is a blueprint or template. Blueprint or template. The simple example is a blueprint or template. Okay, and what is a blueprint or what is a template? What we are going to do this. Okay, so you might have seen lot of places they will be saying that I have given the blueprint, or let's say that I have given the template. Okay, and very simple example, if you have taken your about resume or biodata form. Okay, so biodata form will be having different columns and with empty spaces. You have to fill there, that's all. It's already provided, right? It's like as a template. Okay, and you don't need to uh, create one more template for that. It's already there. You just need to use that, right? How can you use that? If it is in the system, you will take a printout and then you fill up that. The original document will be there itself. It won't be deleted. If you have taken the printout, it will be there. You can take number of printouts from that. Any number of printouts you can do that. Right? In the same way, a class is a blueprint or template where we can create different objects. Okay? However, there is a document with the biodata form. You can take the printout and you can fill up and use it. Right? How many printouts you can do? Any number of printouts you can take it. The same way, a class is also like as a biodata form, which is in the soft copy. It doesn't exist. If you take a printout, it is exist. And if you don't take printout, it will be in the system. It's visible, but you can't hold it with hand, right? If you take a printout, it will be holded, right? That's like as a class. Class is nothing but it exists, but it doesn't exist or it doesn't available for hand, right? What is an object? An object is an real-time entity which exists in the real-time world. Okay, let's say I'll tell you an example. In the same example, if you have seen that biodata form, that's a class, and if you take a printout, that is exist in the world, so you can see that and you can touch with that hand, that's existing in the real-time world. So that is object. Okay, and let me take one more example, like as a person. Anyone can call me as a person. Okay, so but we don't use to call any person with the name person, right? You can't say that hey person, right? We can't. But if you take that person, he will be having some fields and other methods. Let's say that I will be having some properties. What are those properties? His own properties. What's it? He will be having his own age. He will be having his own name and date of birth and other things. So, but he will be working some functions, right? He will be doing some works, right? Let's say that functions. And what are those functions? A person can do some work like as walking. It's a function. And like as eating or writing or reading, whatever it is, everything is a function, right? So simply in technical term, what we can call as a class is the collection of variables and methods. Okay, a class is the collection of variables and methods. Okay, the same way in normal terms, a class is a blueprint or template where we can create number of objects from that class. Okay, that's the introduction. Let's say I'm going to create one class. Okay, syntax of the class. And before that, okay, I will tell you that. Okay, before that, let's see the syntax of the class syntax. And here, access modifier. Don't worry, I will explain this. Access modifier, class keyword, which is in the capital letter. This is called as a keyword. Okay, class, and then class name. Here you can have variables, constructors, and methods. Variables, constructors, and methods. Example of the class. Okay, let's see the example. So before going to that, let's discuss about the access modifiers. Okay, I'll just give the overview. What are the access modifiers we have? Then we'll discuss them. Private, private, protected, public, global, and fifth one, web service. These are the access modifiers we have. This is private, not private. Spelling mistake. Private, protected, public, global, and web service. Okay, I will explain them one by one. You don't need to worry. And then let's see the syntax of example for the class. Example. Okay, so here I am using directly public class, class name, let's say that person. Okay, I'm going to give some variables like as integer age, integer, let's say string name. Okay, we know the declaration of the variable. You can give the default value or you can ignore it, right? Let's see the example and we'll see that. Okay, how to create a class. Just click on file and then click on new, click on Apex class. And what is the difference between this creating the class here and creating the class or something code in this one. This will not be stored in the database. Execute anonymous, the code will not be stored in the database, but whatever you have created using this file menu, and then this will be stored in the database. Okay, I'm giving the person class example. Okay, here I'm going to give integer age, string name. Okay, so here we know that here variables we have declared, right? Then we have constructors and methods. What is a constructor? Okay, so when you are trying to build anything, you need to construct something, right? Let's say I will give you a very simple example in the same biodata form example. So when you are going to create the class, or let's say biodata form, you need to specify what are the attributes will be there in the biodata form, like as name, first name, last name, surname, like as uh, the sex, and then email address, phone number, or let's say address, education, and everything will be there inside the thing. Okay, as well as they will be asking you what you have done, right? So like as what is working, what are you working on? Okay, those things will be there. So you have to decide that what are the attributes will be in their class. Okay, in the person means a person can have the name, address, phone number, email, everything. That you can declare any number of variables. There is no restriction on this. Okay, so then while creating the biodata form, or when you are printing the biodata form, this will give one hard copy, right? Commonly, and sometimes some companies will give their own format of the biodata form, right? So you have to fill up in the same way. Then they will be filling up their data completely. Let's say that date of interview, they will be printed automatically, and the place, venue, and the company name and contact persons. They will be printed automatically, and that means they will be automatically have their own data, and then finally they will give some data to us to fill up that, like as name, email, phone number, and other details. Okay, to fill like that, you have to use the constructor. And what is the main use of constructor is, without constructor you cannot create the object. Okay, I'll tell you a very simple example. How can we use this class outside this? Okay, for that also you should go to the execute anonymous. Okay, and for if you want to execute anything, you should create an object. Without object, you cannot do anything. Okay, without object, you cannot call the object. For that, you should create an object. How to create an object? Okay, so using constructor, we have to create the object. Okay, I'll give an example. Creating an object. Okay, class name and then variable name. So here every class is like as a user defined data type. Every class is like as a data type. Okay, here class name, then variable name equals to, you have to give that value, right? But here if you are creating a variable for the primitive data types, you don't need to give the default value. But when you are creating an object, you should create the object using new keyword. It means that is the mandatory. New, then class name. And here, this is the default constructor we used to call. Okay. And you can have any number of constructors. Constructor overridden. Okay. Overloading and other things are there. Constructor overloading, I will explain that. Okay. So by default, when you create a class, by default, when you create a class, automatically one default constructor will be there inside the class. It means how it will be there, right? So this will be like, okay, here it will be public only. This default constructor will always be there in the class by default. You don't need to externally write the code here. Okay, you are not required to write. That will be automatically available. Okay, here let me create an object for this class. How to create an object? Class name, and then we have to give the variable name, and then new keyword class name, then brackets. Okay, you should remember that here person p equals to, I'm giving new person. Okay, person p equals to new person. The same way, right? Class name is person and variable name I have given p. Whatever you want you can give it, equals, and then new keyword, then class name. Clear? And then how to access these variables outside the class? This is the class we have created. This is outside the class, right? We are not executing inside the class. It's outside the class. Execute anonymous also is outside the class. Okay. How to access the variables? I will tell you that. Accessing variables. Yes. So here variable name dot then attribute name. I will say that. Here otherwise you can use this object name. That would be give the good understanding to you. Object name dot variable name. You can access like this. Okay. So here object we have already created and then variables we have. Okay. Now we have to access the variables. How to access the variables? Here system dot, I'm just printing the values. Okay, you can use that, right? Here what you have to use, p dot and then variable name, object name dot variable name. What is the variable name here? Age. Okay, and here it throws an error. What is the error? We'll see that. So variable is not visible, person dot age. Okay, here I will tell you that here the access modifiers will come into the picture. Okay, so here we have given the private, protected, public, global, and web service. We know that variable name need to be declared with like as data type and then variable name, right? And then equals to default value. This optional, right? So this is the syntax we have already discussed. But here what you have to do is in the class when you are declaring, you should give the access modifier as well. Access modifier is mandatory. And if you don't give the access modifier, wherever it is, if you don't give the access modifier, the default access modifier is private. Okay, default access modifier is private. Then what is private? Why it's not visible? Close the door. Okay, because if you give the private, that will be available inside the class only. It will not be available outside the class. It's just available inside the class. Okay, if you don't give any access modifier here, it will be private. Even if you give the private here, these variables or methods whatever you have declared inside the class, if you take it as a access modifier as private, then these all will be available inside the class only. It won't be available outside the class. This is outside the class only, right? So you cannot access this outside the class. Okay, if you want to access this outside the class, it should be public or global. Okay, even if you put private protected also, it will not be available. Okay, so for that let me declare as a public. Okay, access a modifier, data type, then variable name. Now just try to execute this. I'm adding here. So you have to use like this only, and object name dot variable name. Okay, now just try execute. Here it is. Both are null because the default values are null. We know that. If we give here age equals to 40, name equals to ABC. Okay, if I execute now, we'll see this. Here it is 40 and name. Okay, so this is how we have to access the variables outside the class and how to create the constructor. And using the constructor, how to create an object and how to access the variables. So if the variables are here, then we should use the object name to access these variables. Clear? Object name dot variable name. How to create an object? And we have the syntax. Object name, class name, then object name equals to new keyword, then again constructor. Whatever the constructor. So this is the default constructor. So you don't need to create the default constructor. It will be inside the class itself by default. That's why we are calling it as a default constructor. Okay? Now, here I have the values. I don't want values to be declared here. Okay? I just need to set my own values. Okay? I just need to set my own values here. So then what you can do is, you can access the variables like this, right? The same way you can set the values also. P dot age equals to 90. P dot name equals to test. Okay? Here I am setting the values. We know that here object is created. Then we are trying to access the variables. Here what are the values? Here it will be null values because we are not setting any value, and default is this one. Okay, so we'll see, execute this. At line number 2 these are nulls, and line number 5 it is 90 and test. Okay, here it is. And what will be the output at line number 2? Yes. So at line number 2, these values will be printed because we have the values at this. And line number 5, these values will be printed. Just see that. Okay. So that's it. And then, so I want to set, if I want to set the variables values, like I have to use object name dot variable name. Okay. That's one way. Okay. Then this is one way of setting the variables, right? Sorry, one way of setting the values to the variables. Okay, so then this is one way, and we have how to overload the constructor. Okay, I don't want this default constructor. I'm going to write my own constructor here. Okay, let's see that. I'm writing, this should also be public only. If you put private, it will not be available outside. Okay, public constructor. So then how the constructor will be? Constructor will be with the name of class only. Class name should be constructor. If you give other thing, it won't. Okay, here what I'm trying to do is system dot debug default constructor here when you execute this code, nothing is printed before that, right? If I have, so now what I haven't done is my default constructor has been overridden. Okay, just try to execute this. See that first constructor will be executed because to create the object we should use the constructor. So first constructor will be executed, then once the object is created we are able to access the variables. You can't access the variables directly, right? Now I want my own constructor. This is the default constructor. Constructor syntax is like this. Okay, how it will be: access modifier, then class name, square brackets. Sorry, this brackets. Okay, now I want to use my own constructor. Okay, so here what we can do is we can create our own constructors like this. Constructor syntax, creating constructor. You can use this access modifier. AM means access modifier, and then class name. So this should be mandatory. Okay, here you can use parameters. If I put in small letters, these are optional. Okay, here whatever you want, you can do that. Okay, here what I'm trying to do this is, let's write one constructor, public person. You cannot use the same constructor twice. Okay, if you try to, this is duplicate, right? So it's method already defined. It's not a method, but it's a constructor. Okay, so this message is different. Now here what we have to do is we have to give any parameters. What are the parameters? Okay, I will tell you. Here what we have done, first we have created the object, then we set the values. Okay, I don't want to set the values for the variables later. Okay, I just need to set the values to the variables whenever I'm creating an object. Okay, when will be created? When we call the constructor, then only the object would be created. Okay, I want to set the values directly here only. How can we do that? For that, what we have to do is, let's use one variable here, integer a and string n I'm giving. So a means age, n means name. Okay, here what I can do is I have two keywords in Salesforce, even in Java also. Those are this and super. These are two keywords we have. Okay, so this refers to the same object. This refers to the, it refers same object, and super refers the super parent class. I will tell you this later, no problem. Okay, just note down this. Here this means the same object. Okay, here this dot age. So whatever the values I am passing using the constructor, I am setting to the variables. This dot age equals to a, and this dot name equals to n. Okay, now when I use this constructor, you have to set the values later. Externally you have to define the values. If you use this constructor, the values will be already there. Okay, let me tell you that example. Now I'm going to create one more object, person p1 equals to new person of, here I am passing the values. Okay, when you are passing the values, you should pass in the same order. What is the order here? So here I will tell you that first we should pass the integer, then we have to pass the string. If you pass first string then integer, it won't accept. Okay, you have to pass in the same order. First it should be integer, second it should be string. It's mandatory. You should follow the order. So here, person P, I'm giving that 50 and name as my test. Okay. Once it is done, you can see that system.debug. I already told you that you can create number of objects per class, right? Here I have created two objects, one using one constructor, another one using another constructor. Okay, you can use any constructor and any number of objects to create. Okay, so here let's execute this. See here, when the default constructor is executed, the default values are came 30 and xux, and later we have overridden them, the values that we set 90 and test. So in the second constructor we have directly give them our own values. See that we have given our own values here, 50 and my test. These two are set to the same variables inside the class. Okay, I'm going to create one more thing, one more constructor here. So here the variables are same but order is different, right? And here let me give an, let me remove this. Okay, you can have any number of things. Here it is. Okay, I will ask question. This is called as constructor overloading. One constructor with different parameters. If you declare more than once, then it's called as a constructor overloading. And parameters like this, you can have up to 255. Okay, integer a is one, string n is second one. So like that, you can have up to 255 parameters, not more than that. Okay, we can say that these are arguments or parameters. We can say that these are the parameterized constructor or constructor overloaded. Okay, this is this thing. And if you say that I am using, okay, string then integer, and what is the output here? Sharif, will it be executed or not? Second one will be executed. Nagaraju, it's already there, right? Sai, second one. Suresh, again. Now let's see the methods. Okay, let's see the variables, how many types of variables we have. Okay, one by one. Just now we have seen that the different things Variables. We know that how to declare the variables inside the class. Access modifier, then data type, again equals to, and then default value. Yes, sorry, variable name. Okay, so here we have the syntax as well, and we have different types of variables. Types of variables. First thing, local variables. Second one, instance variables. Third one, static variables. We have already seen the two types of variables. Okay, local variables, instance variables, then static variables. Three types of variables we have. Local variables, you are not required to specify the access modifier. Okay, you are not required to specify the access modifiers for the local variables. Just like as data type, then variable name. So we have already seen that. Right? How we have seen that? I'll tell you that. Instance variables you should declare with the access modifier. If you don't declare, it will be private. Even for the local variables also, that will be private only. Okay? Then static variables, I'll tell you that. Here, see that I'm going to create one variable, string name equals to test, integer age equals to 50. Now here I can pass name, I can pass age, right? So these are the local variables. Okay, how the local variables will be accessible? I will tell a very simple example. In the previous class we have explained that for integer I equals to 1, I less than or equals to 10, I plus plus. We have written that system.debug, right? Okay, I value. And if I use this system.debug, so this is I value, right? Here I can print the I value. Okay, here if I print I value here, will it be available or not? Can I have it or not? Okay, I'll tell you that. Okay, so the thing is, when you declare like this, and these variables are called as local variables. Local variables are used in the loops or conditional statements. Okay, if you create any, let's say that I'm using string company equals to xyz. So I have declared this, and if I use this, it will be okay or not? Will it execute? No, it will not be, because if you declare the local variables, these are accessible inside the bracket only. If the bracket is over, then that variable cannot be accessed outside that loop or if conditional, whatever it is. Okay, and if you use this is also local variable only, but this will be accessed here also because this is outside the loop. Okay, this is also local variable, it will be accessed here. Okay, then instance variables. What are the instance variables? Instance variables are like this. Okay, which variables are declared inside the class are called as instance variables. The variables or attributes, we can say that. Okay, and what are these variables? So when you have created when you have created an object in Salesforce, you might have different fields, right? Those fields are called as attributes here. Okay, we can say that when you have created an object for the person, you can have the age, name, then we have different other things as well. The same way you can have the them others. Okay, these are instance variables. Then what is a static variable? Okay, static variables are also like as variables. Those syntax will be like this. You should use the access modifier. Okay, then you should use static keyword. Okay, then you should use data type, variable name equals default value. This is optional. Okay, access modifier, static keyword, data type, then variable name equals to default value. Okay, let me declare one thing. Public static, okay, string company equals to essential. You can give like this or you can ignore the default value option declaration. Okay, then how can access the static variables? If you want to access the static variables, you can use anywhere here. Okay, directly you are not required to use anything. System dot debug of company. Okay, you can directly access this. Then inside the class you can access directly. You are not required to worry anything. But how to access outside the class? For outside the class, if you want to access static variables, you have to use the class name. How to access that? Okay, class name dot variable name. What is that? Company. Okay, if you want to access the instance variables, you should create an object and then you have to access that. If you want to access your own static variables, you just use class name. You don't need to create an object. And if you try to access with object name, it throws the error message. Just you should use with this class name. Okay, this is the variables, local variables, instance variables, then static variables. Mhm. There you can set your own variable. If you want to give your own name, you can give that. Simple. How to access that? The same way you can set. Okay? That is the static variables and constructors. Okay? Let's discuss methods as well. In methods, what is a method? A method is also like a constructor. Okay? But methods are different functionalities where that class will do. Okay, I will give an example for that. A person can do lot of things, right? He will do a lot of things. Let's say walking, okay, reading, then other things. Okay, here how to declare a method and what are the different types of methods we have. method. What is a method? A method is a separate block to have some different business logic. Okay? In this method, how to declare a method? Okay? Before that, how many types of methods we have? We have instance methods and static methods. Instance methods, and then we have static methods. Instance methods. We have two types of methods. One is instance methods, second one is static methods. What is instance methods? Instance methods are also like that, the instance variables. You have to access the instance variables using the object. The same way to call the methods of instance, then you should use the object. Okay? Declaration, how to declare? Access modifier. Okay? Just wait. Access modifier. Then you should use some return type. Return type. Okay? Then method name. Method name. Then here optional parameters. Here the starting and ending. Okay? Access modifier, return type, method name, and parameters. What do the parameters means? Inside the constructor we have declared some parameters, right? To pass the values. The same way you can have your own parameters. Okay? And here extra we have a return type. Okay? Let's see. What are the different return types we can have inside the method? Okay? You can have any primitive data types. Primitive data types. Okay? Any other collection data types. Collection data types. And we have user defined data types. I will tell you, you don't need to worry. Data types. Or else finally void. At least void. You should have void. Void means nothing. We are returning nothing. Okay? So that is the different data types we have as the return type. Anything, any data type you can use as the return data type. String, integer, decimal, long, double, or let's say that time, date time. Okay? Or you can use any collections, or you can use void, or you can have one object as return type, one class object also as a return type. You can have anything else. Okay? Let's see one example on this. Let's see one example. Example is, let's say that I just need to say that yes, this object is reading. Okay? Here, access modifier, public. Why I'm using public? If you want to call outside, you should use the public. Then return type. I don't want to return anything currently, just void. Reading. I'm not going to pass anything. Just system.debug. Let's use the in this class itself. Person. And so we know that first thing we should use the access modifier. Then we should use the return type. I'm not going to return anything, so I'm using void. Reading. Okay. So I'm using system dot debug reading a book. Okay, now here's that, and I can use the name as well. Name plus is. Here, see that when you say that name, this name will be there, right? Name will be come here. Reading a book. Let's see that. Let me execute this. Person. I have to see when you say that instance, you should create an object. That's all, nothing other than. When you say that instance object is nothing but an instance. Okay, P equals to new person. Here I can use any constructor. So we have two constructors. First string, then uh, first string and integer, integer and string. Okay, I'm going to pass first string, sorry, integer, then I'm giving shake. Now I'm going to call that p dot. So you can call the methods using the object name only because these are instance methods. So what is that? We have reading. Just simple, the same way how we can call. Just execute this. Shaker is reading a book. Okay. If you put, if you remove this access modifier, what will happen? It will be private only. So it cannot be accessible outside the class. Okay. I want to give the book name as well. Reading only. I'm giving string b name. Okay. So here reading a book called okay, you can use like this. Now if I call like this, okay, so now which method will be executed, or line number 22 or line number 26, which one? Here when you are passing the string, this is having, here it is, so this will be called, just try that, here it is, book called SFDC. If you execute, if you don't pass anything, what will be executed? First one will be executed. Why it is? There is no parameter is acceptable and we are not passing any variable as the parameter, so that it's accept like this. This is called as method overloading. One method is same, reading, reading. Method name is same, but parameters are different, right? That is called as method overloading. Same method with different parameters, and so that's called as method overloading. Okay, so this is called as constructor overloading. This is called as method overloading. Okay, you can have anything here. Okay, now here I'm using this reading. I'm giving static. Here, as it is a static method, when you say it is static, then it is called as a static method. So how to call the static? Using class name, that's all, nothing other than that. Okay, if you call with person dot reading of first name and name, this is and then I'm giving SFDC. Which method will be executed? Line number 29 will be executed because we are calling the static method. Okay, so this is executed. Then intelligent questions to you. I'm passing this. I'm using the same name. Will it be accessible or not? Because we have already name, right? Okay, so this is a problem with SFDC. It won't allow us to think. It's throwing the error message because static is there, and let's say I'm giving the different name. Heading 1 name is different. Okay, so now if I say that, it says that variable does not exist name. Okay, till now we used this is accessible, name is accessible because this variable is instance variable. Instance variables will be allowed only inside the instance methods only. So instance variables does not accessible inside the static methods. Okay, if it is a static method, this will be allowed. Okay, that's the static methods, instance methods, and you can use the static methods overloading as well. If you put static, that will be great. That would be done. Okay, you just today we discuss the things are first variables, class we have done, object we have created, then we have seen that variables like as instance variables, local variables and static variables. Then we have created the constructors and we have seen the constructor overloading as well. Then we have seen the methods, and the methods we have seen that method overloading as well, static methods. Okay, so keep these things will be keep on coming.